Hello everyone, Disha here. Welcome back to this video. So we're going to start with the 11th chapter, which is the universal form in this video. So coming to the first shloka of this chapter. Arjun said, "By my hearing the instructions you have kindly given me about these most confidential spiritual subjects, my illusion has now been dispelled." Now coming to the explanation of this shloka. This chapter reveals Krishna as the cause of all causes. He is even the cause of the Mahavishnu from whom the material universes emanate. Krishna is not an incarnation. He is the source of all incarnations. That has been completely explained in the last chapter. Now, as far as Arjun is concerned, he says that his illusion is over. This means that Arjun no longer thinks of Krishna as a mere human being, as a friend of his, but as a source of everything. Arjun is very enlightened and is glad that he has such a great friend as Krishna. But now he is thinking that although he may accept Krishna as the source of everything, others may not. So in order to establish Krishna's divinity for all, he is requesting Krishna in this chapter to show his universal form. Actually, when one sees the universal form of Krishna, one becomes frightened like Arjun. But Krishna is so kind that after showing it, he converts himself again into his original form. Arjun agrees to what Krishna has several times said. Krishna is speaking to him just for his benefit. So Arjun acknowledges that all this is happening to him by Krishna's grace. He is now convinced that Krishna is the cause of all causes and is present in everyone's heart as the Supersoul. Now coming to the second shloka, it says, "O lotus-eyed one, I have heard from you in detail about the appearance and disappearance of every living entity and have realized your inexhaustible glories." Now coming to the explanation of this shloka. Arjun addresses Lord Krishna as lotus-eyed out of his joy, for Krishna has assured him in the previous chapter, "I am the source of the appearance and disappearance of this entire material manifestation." Arjun has heard from this from the Lord in detail. Arjun further knows that in spite of his being the source of all appearances and disappearances, he is aloof from them. As the Lord has said in the 9th chapter, he is all-pervading. Yet he is not personally present everywhere. That is the inconceivable opulence of Krishna, which Arjun admits that he has thoroughly understood. Now coming to the third shloka, which says, "O greatest of all personalities, O supreme form, though I see you here before me in your actual position and you have described yourself, I wish to see how you have entered into this cosmic manifestation. I want to see that form of yours." Now coming to the explanation of this shloka. The Lord said that because he entered into the material universe by his personal representation, the cosmic manifestation has been made possible and is going on. Now, as far as Arjun is concerned, he is inspired by the statements of Krishna. But in order to convince others in the future who may think that Krishna is an ordinary person, Arjun desires to see him actually in his universal form, to see how he is acting from within the universe, although he is apart from it. Arjun's addressing the Lord as Purushottam is also significant. Since the Lord is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is present within Arjun himself. Therefore, he knows the desire of Arjun and he can understand that Arjun has no special desire to see him in his universal form. For Arjun is completely satisfied to see him in his personal form of Krishna. But the Lord can understand also that Arjun wants to see the universal form to convince others. Arjun did not have any personal desire for confirmation. Krishna also understands that Arjun wants to see the universal form to set a criterion, for in the future there would be so many impostors who would pose themselves as incarnations of God. The people therefore should be careful. One who claims to be Krishna should be prepared to show his universal form to confirm his claim to the people. Now coming to the fourth shloka, which says, "If you think that I am able to behold your cosmic form, O my Lord, O Master of all mystic power, then kindly show me that unlimited universal self." Now coming to the explanation of this shloka. It is said that one can neither see, hear, understand nor perceive the Supreme Lord Krishna by the material senses. But if one is engaged in loving transcendental service to the Lord from the beginning, then one can see the Lord by revelation. Every living entity is only a spiritual spark, therefore it is not possible to see or to understand the Supreme Lord. Arjun as a devotee does not depend on his speculative strength, rather he admits his limitations as a living entity and acknowledges Krishna's inestimable position. Arjun could understand that for a living entity it is not possible to understand the unlimited, infinite. If the infinite reveals himself, then it is possible to understand the nature of the infinite by the grace of the infinite. The word Yogeswara is also very significant here because the Lord has inconceivable power. If he likes, he can reveal himself by his grace, although he is unlimited. Therefore, Arjun pleads for the inconceivable grace of Krishna. He does not give Krishna orders. Krishna is not obliged to reveal himself unless one surrenders fully in Krishna consciousness and engages in devotional service. Thus, it is not possible for persons who depend on the strength of their mental speculation to see Krishna. Now coming to the fifth shloka, which says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Arjun, O son of Partha, see now my opulences, hundreds of thousands of varied divine and multicolored forms. Now coming to the explanation of the shloka. Arjun wanted to see Krishna in his universal form, which although a transcendental form is just manifested for the cosmic manifestation and is therefore subject to the temporary time of this material nature. As the material nature is manifested and not manifested, similarly this universal form of Krishna is manifested and non-manifested. It is not eternally situated in the spiritual sky like Krishna's other forms. As far as the devotee is concerned, he is not eager to see the universal form, but because Arjun wanted to see Krishna in this way, Krishna reveals this form. This universal form is not possible to be seen by an ordinary man. Krishna must give one of the power to see it. Now coming to the sixth shloka, which says, O best of the Bharats, see here the different manifestations of Adityas, Vasus, Rudras, Ashwini Kumaras and all the other demigods. Behold the many wonderful things which no one has ever seen or heard of before. Now coming to the explanation of the shloka. Even though Arjun was a friend of Krishna and the most advanced of learned men, it was still not possible for him to know everything about Krishna. Here it is stated that humans have neither heard nor known of all these forms and manifestations. Now Krishna reveals these wonderful forms. Now coming to the seventh shloka, it says, O Arjun, whatever you wish to see, behold at once in this body of mine. This universal form can show you whatever you now desire to see and whatever you may want to see in the future. Everything moving and non-moving is here completely in one place. Now coming to the explanation of the shloka. No one can see the entire universe while sitting in one place. Even the most advanced scientist cannot see what is going on in other parts of the universe. But a devotee like Arjun can see everything that exists in any part of the universe. Krishna gives him the power to see anything he wants to see, past, present and future. Thus by the mercy of Krishna, Arjun is able to see everything. Now coming to the 8th shloka, which says, But you cannot see me with your present eyes. Therefore I give you divine eyes. Behold my mystic opulence. Now coming to the explanation of the shloka. A pure devotee does not like to see Krishna in any form except his form with two hands. A devotee must see his universal form by his grace, and not with the mind but with spiritual eyes. To see the universal form of Krishna, Arjun is told not to change his mind but his vision. The universal form of Krishna is not very important. That will be clear in subsequent verses. Yet because Arjun wanted to see it, the Lord gives him the particular vision required to see that universal form. Devotees who are correctly situated in a transcendental relationship with Krishna are attracted by loving features, not by a godless display of opulences. The playmates of Krishna, the friends of Krishna, and the parents of Krishna never want Krishna to show his opulences. They are so immersed in pure love that they not even know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In their loving exchange, they forget that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that the boys who play with Krishna are all highly pious souls. And after many births, they are able to play with Krishna. Such boys do not know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They take him as a personal friend. Therefore, Sukdev Goswami recites this verse. Here is the Supreme Person who is considered the impersonal Brahman by great sages, the Supreme Personality of Godhead by devotees, and a product of material nature by ordinary men. Now these boys who have performed many pious activities in their past lives are playing with that Supreme Personality of Godhead. The fact is that the devotee is not concerned with seeing the Visvas Rupa, the universal form, but Arjun wanted to see it to substantiate Krishna's statements so that in the future people could understand that Krishna not only theoretically or philosophically presented himself as the Supreme, but actually presented himself as to Arjun. Arjun must confirm this because Arjun is the beginning of the Parampara system. Those who are actually interested in understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna and who follow in the footsteps of Arjun should understand that Krishna not only theoretically presented himself as the Supreme, but actually revealed himself as the Supreme. The Lord gave Arjun the necessary power to see his universal form because he knew that Arjun did not particularly want to see it, as we have already explained. Now coming to the ninth slok, which says, Sanjaya said, O king, having spoken thus, the Supreme Lord of all mystic power, the personality of Godhead, displayed his universal form to Arjun. Now coming to the 10th and 11th slok, which says, Arjun saw in that universal form unlimited mouths, unlimited eyes, unlimited wonderful visions. The form was decorated with many celestial ornaments and bore many divine upraised weapons. He wore celestial gardens and garments, and many divine scents were smeared over his body. All were wondrous, brilliant, unlimited, all expanding. Now coming to the explanation of the shlok. In these two verses, the repeated use of the word many indicates that there was no limit to the number of hands, mouths, legs and other manifestations Arjun was seeing. These manifestations were distributed throughout the universe, but by the grace of the Lord, Arjun could see them while sitting in one place. That was due to the inconceivable potency of Krishna. Now coming to the 12th slok, which says, if hundreds of thousands of suns were to rise at once into the sky, their radiance might resemble the effulgence of the Supreme Person in that universal form. Now coming to the explanation of this shlok. What Arjun saw was indescribable, yet Sanjaya is trying to give a mental picture of that great revelation to Dhritarashtra. Neither Sanjaya nor Dhritarashtra were present, but Sanjaya by the grace of Vyasa could see whatever happened. Thus he now compares the situation, as far as it can be understood, to an imaginable phenomena, thousands of suns. Now coming to the 13th slok, which says, at that time Arjun could see in the universal form of the Lord the unlimited expansions of the universe situated in one place, although divided into many thousands. Now coming to the explanation of the shlok. The word Tatra there is very significant. It indicates that both Arjun and Krishna were sitting on the chariot when Arjun saw the universal form. Others on the battlefield could not see this form because Krishna gave the vision only to Arjun. Arjun could see in the body of Krishna many thousands of planets. As we learn from the Vedic scriptures, there are many universes and many planets. Some of them are made of earth, some of them are made of gold, some of them are made of jewels, and some are very great. Some are not so great. Sitting on his chariot, Arjun could see all these, but no one could understand what was going on between Arjun and Krishna. Now coming to the 14th slok, which says, then bewildered and astonished, his hair standing on end, Arjun bowed his head to offer obeisances and with folded hands began to pray to the Supreme Lord. Now coming to the explanation of this shlok. Once the divine vision is revealed, the relationship between Krishna and Arjun changes immediately. Before, Krishna and Arjun had a relationship based on friendship, but here after the revelation, Arjun is offering obeisances with great respect, and with folded hands he is praying to Krishna. He is praising the universal form. Thus Arjun's relationship becomes one of wonder rather than friendship. Great devotees see Krishna as the reservoir of all relationships. In the scriptures, there are 12 basic kinds of relationships mentioned, and all of them are present in Krishna. It is said that he is the ocean of all the relationships exchanged between two living entities, between the gods or between the Supreme Lord and his devotees. Here Arjun was inspired by the relationship of wonder, and in that wonder, although he was by nature very sober, calm and quiet, he became ecstatic. His hair stood up, and he began to offer his obeisances unto the Supreme Lord with folded hands. He was affected by the wonders of the Supreme Lord. The immediate context is wonder. His natural loving friendship was overwhelmed by wonder, and thus he reacted in this way. Now coming to the 15th slok, which says, Arjun said, my dear Lord Krishna, I see assembled in your body all the demigods and various other living entities. I see Brahma sitting on the lotus flower, as well as Lord Shiva and all sages and divine serpents. Now coming to the explanation of this shlok. Arjun sees everything in the universe, therefore he sees Brahma, who is the first creature in the universe, and the celestial serpent upon which the Garbhodakasai Vishnu lies in the lower regions of the universe. This snake bed is called Vasuki. There are also other snakes known as Vasuki. Arjun can see from the Garbhoda sky Vishnu up to the topmost part of the universe on the lotus flower planet where Brahma, the first creator of the universe, resides. That means that from the beginning to the end, everything could be seen by Arjun, who was sitting in one place on his chariot. This was possible by the grace of Supreme Lord Krishna. Now coming to the 16th slok, which says, O Lord of the universe, O universal form, I see your body, many arms, bellies, mouths and eyes, expanded everywhere, without limit. I see in you no end, no middle and no beginning. Now coming to the explanation of the shlok. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is unlimited. Thus through him everything could be seen. Now coming to the 17th slok, which says, Your form is difficult to see because of its glaring effulgence, spreading on all sides like blazing fire or the immeasurable radiance of the sun. Yet I see this glowing form everywhere, adorned with various crowns, clubs and discs. Now coming to the 18th slok, which says, You are the supreme primal objective. You are the ultimate resting place of all this universe. You are inexhaustible and you are the oldest. You are the maintainer of the eternal religion, the personality of Godhead. This is my opinion. Now coming to the 19th slok, which says, You are without origin, middle or end. Your glory is unlimited. You have numberless arms and the sun and the moon are your eyes. I see you with blazing fire coming forth from your mouth, burning this entire universe by your own radiance. Now coming to the explanation of the shlok. There is no limit to the extent of the six opulences of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Here and in many other places there is repetition. But according to the scriptures, repetition of the glories of Krishna is not a literary weakness. It is said that at the time of bewilderment or wonder or of great ecstasy, statements are repeated over and over. That is not a flaw. Now coming to the 20th slok, which says, Although you are one, you spread throughout the sky and the planets and all space between. O Great One, seeing this wondrous and terrible form, all the planetary systems are perturbed. Now coming to the explanation of the shlok. The space between heaven and earth, the three worlds, are significant words in this verse because it appears that not only did Arjun see this universal form of the Lord, but others in other planetary systems saw it also. Arjun's seeing of the universal form was not a dream. All whom the Lord endowed with divine vision saw that universal form on the battlefield. Now coming to the 21st slok, which says, All the hosts of demigods are surrendering before you and entering into you. Some of them, very much afraid, are offering prayers with folded hands. Hosts of great sages are perfected beings, crying all peace and praying to you by singing the Vedic hymns. Now coming to the explanation of the shlok. The demigods in all the planetary systems feared the terrific manifestation of the universal form and its glaring effulgence and so prayed for protection. Now coming to the 22nd slok, which says, All the various manifestations of Lord Shiv, the Adityas, the Vasus, the Sadhyas, the Visvedevas, the two Asvis, the Maruts, the forefathers, the Gandharvas, the Yakshas, the Asuras and the perfected demigods are beholding you in wonder. Now coming to the 23rd slok, which says, O mighty armed one, all the planets with their demigods are disturbed at seeing your great form, with its many faces, eyes, arms, thighs, legs and bellies, and your many terrible teeth. And as they are disturbed, so am I. Now coming to the 24th slok, which says, O all-pervading Vishnu, seeing you with your many radiant colors touching the sky, your gaping mouths and your great glowing eyes, my mind is perturbed by fear. I can no longer maintain my steadiness or equilibrium of mind. Now coming to the 25th slok, which says, O Lord of Lords, O refuge of the worlds, please be gracious to me. I cannot keep my balance seeing thus your blazing, death-like faces and awful teeth. In all directions I am bewildered. Coming to the 26th and 27th slok, which says, All the sons of Dhritarashtra, along with their allied kings and Bhisma, Drona, Karan and our chief shoulders also are rushing into your fearful mouths. And some I see trapped with heads smashed between your teeth. Now coming to the explanation of the shlok. Now Arjun sees that the leaders of the opposite party, Bhisma, Drona, Karan and all the sons of Dhritarashtra and their soldiers and Arjun's own soldiers are all being annihilated. This is an indication that after the death of nearly all the persons assembled at Kurukshetra, Arjun will emerge victorious. It is also mentioned here that Bhisma, who is supposed to be unconquerable, will also be smashed. So also Karan. Not only will the great warriors of the other party like Bhisma be smashed, but some of the other great warriors of Arjun's side also. Now coming to the 28th slok, which says, as the many waves of the rivers flow into the ocean, so do all these great warriors enter blazing into your mouths. Now coming to the 29th slok, which says, I see all people rushing full speed into your mouth as moths dash to destruction in a blazing fire. Now coming to the 30th slok, which says, O Vishnu, I see you devouring all people from all sides with your flaming mouths. Covering all the universe with your effulgence, you are manifest with terrible scorching rays. Now coming to the 31st slok, which says, O Lord of Lords, so fierce of form, please tell me who you are. I offer my obeisances unto you, please be gracious to me. You are the primal Lord. I want to know about you, for I do not know what your mission is. Now coming to the 32nd slok, which says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Time I am the great destroyer of the worlds, and I have come here to destroy all people. With the exception of you, the Pandavas, all the soldiers here on both sides will be slain. Coming to the explanation of this slok. Although Arjun knew that Krishna was his friend and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he was puzzled by the various forms exhibited by Krishna. Therefore, he asked further about the actual mission of this devastating force. It is written in the Vedas that the Supreme Truth destroys everything. This form of the Supreme Lord is the all-devouring giant, and here Krishna presents himself in that form of all-devouring time. Except for the few Pandavas, everyone who was present on the battlefield would be devoured by him. Arjun was not in favor of the fight, and he thought it was better not to fight. Then there would be no frustration. In reply, the Lord is saying that even if he did not fight, every one of them would be destroyed, for that was his plan. If Arjun stopped fighting, they would die in another way. Death could not be checked, even if he did not fight. In fact, they were already dead. Time is destruction, and all manifestations are to be vanquished by the desire of the Supreme Lord. That is the law of nature. Now coming to the 33rd slok, which says, Therefore get up, prepare to fight and win glory. Conquer your enemies and enjoy a flourishing kingdom. They are already put to death by my arrangement, and you, O Savyasaki, can be but an instrument in the fight. Now coming to the explanation of the slok. Sabyasakin refers to one who can shoot arrows very expertly in the field. Thus Arjun is addressed as an expert warrior capable of delivering arrows to kill his enemies. Just become an instrument. This world is also very significant. The whole world is moving according to the plan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Foolish persons who do not have sufficient knowledge think that nature is moving without a plan and all manifestations are but accidental formations. There are many so-called scientists who suggest that perhaps it was like this or maybe like that, but there is no question of perhaps and maybe. There is a specific plan being carried out in this material world. What is this plan? This cosmic manifestation is a chance for the conditioned souls to go back to Godhead, back to home. As long as they have the domineering mentality, which makes them try to lord it over material nature, they are conditioned. But anyone who can understand the plan of the Supreme Lord and cultivate Krishna consciousness is most intelligent. The creation and destruction of the cosmic manifestation are under the superior guidance of God. Thus the battle of Kurukshetra was fought according to the plan of God. Arjun was refusing to fight, but he was told that he should fight in accordance with the desire of the Supreme Lord. Then he would be happy. If one is in full Krishna consciousness and his life is devoted to the Lord's transcendental service, he is perfect. Now coming to the 34th slok, which says, Drona, Bhisma, Jayadratha, Karan and other great warriors have already been destroyed by me. Therefore, kill them and do not be disturbed. Simply fight and you will vanquish your enemies in battle. Now coming to the explanation of the shlok. Every plan is made by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he is so kind and merciful to his devotees that he wants to give the credit to his devotees who carry out his plan according to his desire. Life should therefore move in such a way that everyone acts in Krishna consciousness and understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the medium of a spiritual master. The plans of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are understood by His mercy, and the plans of the devotees are as good as His plans. One should follow such plans and be victorious in a struggle for existence. Now coming to the 35th slok, which says, Sanjaya said to Dhritarashtra, O king, after hearing these words from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the trembling Arjun offered obeisances with folded hands again and again. He fearfully spoke to Lord Krishna in a faltering voice as follows. Now coming to the explanation of the shlok. As we have already explained, because of the situation created by the universal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Arjun became bewildered in wonder. Thus he began to offer his respectful obeisances to Krishna again and again, and with faltering voice he began to pray, not as a friend, but as a devotee in wonder. Now coming to the 36th slok, which says, Arjun said, O master of the senses, the world becomes joyful upon hearing your name, and thus everyone becomes attached to you. Although the perfected beings offer you their respectful homage, the demons are afraid, and they flee here and there. All this is rightly done. Now coming to the explanation of the shlok. Arjun, after hearing from Krishna about the outcome of the battle of Kurukshetra, became enlightened, and as a great devotee and friend of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he said that everything done by Krishna is quite fit. Arjun confirmed that Krishna is the maintainer and the object of worship for the devotees and the destroyer of the undesirables. His actions are equally good for all. Arjun understood herein that when the battle of Kurukshetra was being concluded, in the outer space there were present many demigods, and they were observing the fight because Krishna was present there. When Arjun saw the universal form of the Lord, the demigods took pleasure in it, but others, who were demons and atheists, could not stand it when the Lord was praised. Out of their natural fear of the devastating form of Supreme Personality of Godhead, they fled. Krishna's treatment of the devotees and the atheist is praised by Arjun. In all cases, a devotee glorifies the Lord because he knows that whatever he does is good for all. Now coming to the 37th slok, which says, O great one, greater than Brahma, you are the original creator. Why then should they not offer their respectful obeisances unto you? O limitless one, God of gods, refuge of the universe, you are the invincible source, the cause of all causes, transcendental to this material manifestation. Now coming to the explanation of the shlok. By this offering of obeisances, Arjun indicates that Krishna is worshipable by everyone. He is all-pervading, and he is the soul of every soul. Arjun is addressing Krishna as Mahatma, which means that he is most magnanimous and unlimited. Anant indicates that there is nothing which is not covered by the influence and energy of the Supreme Lord. And Devasa means that he is the controller of all demigods and is above them all. He is the shelter of the whole universe. Arjun also thought that it was fitting that all the perfect living entities and powerful demigods offer their respectful obeisances unto him, because no one is greater than him. Arjun especially mentions that Krishna is greater than Brahma because Brahma is created by him. Brahma is born out of the lotus stem grown from the navel abdomen of Garbhodaskai Vishnu, who is Krishna's plenary expansion. Therefore, Brahma and Lord Shiva, who is born of Brahma, and all other demigods must offer their respectful obeisances. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam that the Lord is respected by Lord Shiva and Brahma and other similar demigods. The word Aksaram is very significant because this material creation is subject to destruction, but the Lord is above this material creation. He is the cause of all causes, and being so, he is superior to all the conditioned souls within this material nature as well as the material cosmic manifestation itself. He is therefore the all-great supreme. Now coming to the 38th slok, which says, you are the original personality of Godhead, the oldest, the ultimate sanctuary of this manifested cosmic world. You are the knower of everything, and you are all that is knowable. You are the supreme refuge above the material modes. O limitless form, this whole cosmic manifestation is pervaded by you. Now coming to the explanation of this shlok. Everything is resting on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, he is the ultimate rest. Nidhanam means that everything, even the Brahman effulgence, rest on the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. He is the knower of everything that is happening in this world. And if knowledge has any end, he is the end of all knowledge. Therefore, he is known as the knowable. He is the object of knowledge because he is all-pervading. Because he is the cause in the spiritual world, he is transcendental. He is also the chief personality in the transcendental world. Now coming to the 39th slok, which says, you are air and you are the supreme controller. You are fire, you are water, and you are the moon. You are Brahma, the first living creature, and you are the great grandfather. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto you 1,000 times, and again and yet again. Now coming to the explanation of the shlok. The Lord is addressed here as air because the air is the most important representation of all the demigods, being all pervasive. Arjuna also addresses Krishna as the great grandfather because he is the father of Brahma, the first living creature in the universe. Now coming to the 40th slok, which says, obeisances to you from the front, from behind, and from all sides. O unbounded power, you are the master of limitless might. You are all pervading, and thus you are everything. Now coming to the explanation of the shlok. Out of the living ecstasy for Krishna, his friend, Arjuna is offering his respect from all sides. He is accepting that he is the master of all potencies and all prowess, and far superior to all the great warriors assembled on the battlefield. It is said in the Vishnu Purana, whoever comes before you, even if he be a demigod, is created by you, O Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I'm going to end this video on the 40th shlok from this chapter, which is the universal form, and we're going to start with the 44th shlok and complete the entire chapter in the next video. My name is Disha, and I will see you all in the next video.